Good afternoon, everyone. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, the United States Marine Corps fights our nation's battles in the air, on land, and sea, according to the United States Marine Corps hymn. The Marine NCO sword is a symbolism of pride and spirit in the Marine Corps. The non-commissioned officers of the Marine Corps, which are the corporals and sergeants, which are pay grades 4 and 5 of the echelon, are the only NCOs in any branch of the regular United States Armed Forces who still have the privilege of carrying swords, which is generally regarded as a regular commissioned officer's privilege. The NCO sword as such has a rich heritage that has been passed down from generation to generation of Marines. Knowing this history and parts of the NCO sword help respect the reason that the Marine Corps fights today. First, we will talk about where the NCO sword came from. The NCO sword originates from the Civil War era, particularly the Barbary Pirates War. Originally, the Mameluke sword was used by officers and enlisted to engage the enemy. It was then replaced by the 1858 Army Cavalry sword, which is a more cruder and more cost-efficient design. The officers didn't like it, so they wanted to replace it again by the Mameluke sword. The Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, which is the head 4-star general of the Marine Corps, which is in charge of everybody, decided to bestow it upon the corporals and sergeants, otherwise known as the backbone of the Marine Corps, as a recognition of their leadership and authority that they displayed as they led their Marines into combat. It is the oldest sword in use today. Even though it is not used on the streets of Iraq and Afghanistan, it is still used as a ceremonial role. There are several parts of the NCO sword that I will go into. The main parts of the sword are the blade and the scabbard. The blade is composed into about 10 different sections. I will name just a few. You have the hilt, which is the polished brass and leather part of the sword. It is where the Marine NCO grabs onto it. You have the pommel, which is the bottommost tip of the sword, which was used to engage the enemy and actually strike them if it was not able to attack them with the sharp edge of the sword. You then have the knuckle bow, which is the part of the sword that protects the knuckles or the phalanges or fingers of the Marine. This all encompasses the hilt. You then have the false edge of the sword, which is the non-sharp part, and then you have the true edge of the sword, which is the actual attacking part of the sword. You will note on the sword that there are 2 divots that start here, and it is said that when a Marine was to stab an opponent or an enemy, the 2 divots on the end would allow blood to flow out through the enemy more easily because the skin could not tighten around the sword. This would create a more gashing of a wound and would kill the enemy quicker and more efficiently. You'll see that United States Marine Corps is etched across, as well as the EGA, which is the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, the symbol of the United States Marine Corps that you see on Marine Corps commercials, t-shirts, billboards, and everywhere. You also see the Betsy Ross flag, which is a loyalty to country, and you also see the Jewish star on there. And the Marine Corps has an ethos of God, Corps, country, and all of these are represented on the Marine Corps etchings on the NCO sword. I will move on to talk about the scabbard. The scabbard is the essential part that the sword goes into. There is the drag of the sword, which protects it from dragging against the ground and getting busted up and getting broken. You then have the tip, which encases the tip of the sword. You then have the body, as well as the frog stud, which hooks onto your belt, and then the throat. The throat of the sword is where the tip of the sword enters the actual scabbard and comes to rest. A little ditty or a little way of remembering the parts of the scabbard is you want to drag the tip of the sword across the frog's throat. It's a little way of Marines memorizing it for Corporal's Course, Sergeant's Course, where they actually tested on this knowledge. And last, I will talk about how the Marine Corps sword is used today. As I talked about before, the Marine Corps has different professional military education courses, such as corporal's course, located aboard the basic school at Marine Corps Base Quantico, Virginia, where they teach young corporals how to conduct sword manual, where they actually command a platoon and perform the different steps and different ceremonial uses of the sword. This helps instill confidence in the leader as well as authority and leadership according to the Marine Corps Drill and Ceremonies Manual. There are other such uses such as ceremonies, weddings, mess nights, and funerals where the Marine Corps sword is used to honor fallen Marines, honor wedded Marines, and honor past Marines as well as future Marines to come. In conclusion, by learning the understandings and parts of the Marine Corps non-commissioned officer's sword, we can appreciate the heritage and traditions of the Marines. Even though it is only a ceremonially used item, the sword embodies the history that the Marines fight to honor every day on the streets of Iraq and Afghanistan. The NCO sword is just one of many items that keeps the esprit de corps, or the spirit of the Marine Corps, alive. Out of 201,000 Marines in the United States Marine Corps today, roughly 1/3, or 67,000 Marines, are mentors to junior Marines as well as influencers to senior Marines. The NCO sword is just a representation of the power, authority, and leadership of the backbone of the United States Marine Corps. You can look at these statistics as well as other statistics at Marines.mil, which is the Marines' official website, and Pentagon.mil, which is the Pentagon located at Alexandria, Virginia, or Arlington, Virginia. Does anybody have any questions at this time? And thank you for listening to me. I hope you retain some knowledge from this period of instruction. Thank you very much, and Semper Fidelis.